Hello, you guys don't want to talk. What's happening? Is it the network or what?
Madam, we are here. I think we learned about the risk assessment, and then we spoke about SWOT analysis as one of the analysis tools in identifying risk, and then you talk about risk vulnerability assessment.
And what did we say the risk vulnerability assessment is about?
Madam, you said it was the defining and identifying, how do you call it? Classifying or prioritizing the risk in the organization.
Abraham, thank you. Fred Arthur, help us with the recap of what we did last week, okay? When Fred is done, then George will take over. Hello.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning,
yes,
madam.
Fred. Yeah, good morning.
Please, madam, we touch on the quantitative tool, the probability and the metrics, impact metrics, where we have some segments. We group them into A, B, C, and D.
We group them into A, B, and D.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, A, B, madam. And D.
A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
Yes. Please, can I continue or it's fine? Hello. Hello, madam. The A we talk about is an event which is likely to not to happen, and the effect is very little. On the B, the effect is relatively likely to happen, but the major effect, the effect is major, is high. When we talk on the C, it's not likely to happen, and we have big impacts also. And on that, we have to get a contingency plan which will minimize the impacts. Please, that's what I can remember. Hello.
Okay, Fred.
Hello, madam.
Yeah, hello, George.
Yeah, so last week we went through the SWOT analysis, which we talk about the strength and the weakness, and then the opportunity and threat. So,
and how did we say that we use the SWOT analysis, the SWOT analysis to identify risk?
So, madam, sometimes looking at your environment that you operate in, there are certain, let's say, let me use a typical example, like a supplier that you have competitors. You have competitors. So one of the weakness you can have is that there are other companies producing similar goods as you. So with that,
Okay.
it's a potential threat to your organization, since they are producing the same product as you. They are your competitors, and you may end up sharing the same market with them, which may lower your sales or your income.
Okay. Okay. George, thank you. Alberta, I'm still on you. A recap of what we did last week. When it's 12, then we start with what we are supposed to do today. Alberta, please, are you in class today? Yes, please talk. Go ahead.
Madam, please, last week we spoke about the risk management mix, which is the 4 T's, and you spoke about the transfer of risk, Terraland, threat, and terminate. And you told us that for the Terraland, we can accept it because it is minor risk, and therefore it has no what do you call it, special action to be taken, so we can manage it or fix it when it comes. Talk about the threat. The threat one, he said it is uh, mostly common, and for that matter, that action can be it can be created or it can be resolved. And you talk about the transfer of risk, and said the risk it doesn't disappear, but it has a responsibility move. So therefore, we can transfer it to different, or we can transfer it by insuring it, or if it cannot you cannot manage that risk, can give it to people who can take hold of that particular risk. And talk about termination or terminate. He said that one, we since it is terminate, it becomes the highest risk. So therefore, for the betterment of it, we should avoid it. We should avoid it, or we should cancel it when we face such risk, because it is unsafe for us. I think this is what I can say about the 4 T's.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, okay, so today we are still looking at risk, but we are looking at some risk mitigation and then implementation strategies. Some risk mitigation and implementation strategies. The 4 T's, we have talked about them. So it's not something new that you guys haven't seen before or heard before. So with those ones, we are saying that when we talk about risk mitigation, all that we are trying to say is that it's we trying to lessen the adverse impact of a risk event. And the goal of this risk mitigation exercise is to reduce inherent risk to an acceptable residual risk. And I remember our first meeting, we talked about what inherent With this one, we are saying that the risk mitigation, it does not always mean that you are trying to remove the risk completely. No, at times you try to avoid, just as we talked about last week, to treat it, just as Benjamin just explained for us. And then with the inherent risk, you guys, if you remember, we talked about the fact that this is a risk as it is before we do anything about it. So the risk as we see, that is the inherent risk. So if we take no action, you ask yourself, if we take no action about this risk, how bad can it be? How bad can it be? And then we also said that the residual risk, it is the risk that is remained after controls have been taken or actions have been put in place. So after your solution, how much risk is left? Yes. So the risk mitigation, it's we try to reduce the risk that we have currently to a level where we to a level at which the assessed residual risk is acceptable. We are able to treat the risk, actions are being taken. It gets to a point where you find out, do we still have any risk left that we need to deal with? So this is the risk mitigation, what we are trying to say. Then we move on to the risk management mix. That is the 4 T's. The things that we talked about briefly last week because it was something part of the unit 2. So we are saying that we have 4 risk management mix, which is the 4 T's, the transfer of risk, if you want to terminate the risk, we are there. So talking about the transfer of risk, here transferring risk, we are saying that we can use insurance or paying third parties to take the risk, or using terms of contract so that the risk can be borne or shared with partners. So sometimes we want to outsource some of the things that we do in an organization so that in case there is any form of risk attached to it, then whoever that we've outsourced the tax to would borne such a risk. And at times we want to use some terms in the contract, to also share some risks to our partners or those that we are in business with. And as usual, we're talking about the fact that we also take out some insurance covers when we want to transfer some risk. So with this risk, we are saying that you are not removing the risk, but what you are doing is you ask yourself questions. If this risk happens, someone else will pay for it because you know you probably have an insurance cover, or in your contract terms, the other party would have to take care of it, or it's something that you have outsourced. Okay. Then we will talk about the terminate, which is the avoid. With the terminate, we are saying that we try to eliminate the risk. We try to eliminate the risk by not investing or engaging in the activity when the risk involved is too great and cannot be reduced. So sometimes you want to venture into a new business or you want to go into a new market, but looking at how political unstable the market is, if you go and invest into that market and anything happens, it's really going to affect your business. So what do? You withdraw. You avoid it. You avoid that risk. You don't engage in such an activity. So here we are saying that with this type of risk, it is a no-go area. It's something that you don't even, like, it's a no-go area option. You don't want to consider that as well. You don't want to consider that as well. And termination, though, is a powerful tool, but it has its own cost, because sometimes you may lose opportunities, because we know that with risk, the end results can be positive or negative. And because you got to know how great the risk is, you don't want to venture. But who knows, probably if you invested in that course, you might gain access to some opportunities that would have been of great benefit to your organization. Then we again will talk about the third T, which is the tolerate. So the tolerate, as we all know, it is when no action is taken to reduce the risk. When no action is taken to reduce the risk. This is because it's either because the mitigation cost is very high and probably it is not cost effective, or the impact is very low and acceptable, something that you can accept. So you just would want to ignore such type of risk. However, we are saying that in you tolerating the risk, we still need to monitor these risks. Because future changes may make them no longer, like, we may not be able to tolerate them again. You may not be able to tolerate them again in the future. And when you are taking this about the treat, it does not mean that you are careless, or it is not carelessness, but then it's a deliberate decision that you take, because the risk is small, because if you want to fix the risk, the cost involved is too much, or maybe probably there are no practical solutions right now that you can use to fix that particular risk. So what you do is you have to record it, monitor it, and then if there is any review you need to do later, then you probably have to take, you have to do that as well. So let's say you want to procure low value stationaries, okay? And you know low value stationaries, the risk involved here could be supplier delivers stationery 2 days late. And the impact here, we will say, depending on the type of organization, if it's an organization where this low value stationery is not a core or a critical product, then you will say that the impact will be small, because your office will still run if the delivery was late. So the decision you just have to take is to tolerate such type of risk. So this is what we are talking about. Then the treat aspect, we are saying that how do I put it? It means that you trying to controlling the risk through actions that reduces the likelihood and then reduces the impact before it occurs. So sometimes we use, just as you see here, supplier monitoring. You want to monitor your suppliers. You want to do pre-qualification. You have emergency plans there. So if one supplier fails you, you know you can rely on the other supplier. When you are selecting suppliers, you make sure that these suppliers have a certifications you are looking for. We did standards, codes, and the certifications. Then also you make sure you do pre-qualification to get the qualified suppliers you are looking for or you want to work with. This is what we are talking about. Then we again talk, so we getting to know all these risk mitigation strategies. Now, how do we respond to the risk that the risks that we see or we are able to identify in the organization? So this is about you trying to develop strategic options. You're trying to develop some strategic options and determine actions that you can use to reduce some of these risks. And the responses has been grouped into two. We have the responses for negative risk and then the responses for positive risk. So the responses for negative risk is what we have talked about, of which I'm not going to talk about again. That's the 4 T's. Then the response that we use when we are dealing with positive risk, the first one is the exploit. With the exploit, we are saying that there are opportunities in the market. There are opportunities in the markets. So you ensure the opportunity happens. You try to eliminate unnecessary uncertainties that are associated with the risk to ensure it happens. So you know that but there are things that are preventing you from taking advantage of it. So what do? You try to eliminate those things that are preventing you from achieving whatever thing that you want to achieve in the organization. So example that they gave in your book is assigning the best worker to a project to reduce time to complete. You know, you have experts in some areas and there is a task, though maybe there is somebody who has been assigned to that task, but you look, why don't you assign this task to the person that you think have the skills and qualification to perform this project right on time? Then the second one is to enhance. Enhancing here, we are saying that you are trying to increase the probability or the positive impact of that risk. So you adding more resources to finish early. You adding more resources to finish a task early or to finish a project early. So you get whatever benefit that you need to get from that opportunity. So, or we can say that you increase budget slightly so that we can buy in bulk and gain higher discount. This is what we are saying. Then the share, just as we have in the negative risk, in the positive risk too, we are saying that we have share here. You allocate, you try to allocate ownership to a third party. So you partner with another organization so that you can co-import and reduce shipping costs per unit. There is an opportunity that you can import things into the country to sell, probably to gain competitive advantage. But then there is another person or another organization here in Ghana that probably is also selling the same thing or selling something else, but you can share the same container. You have your things in the container, that organization have their things in the container. So you import. It reduces the shipping cost for you as an organization. Then acceptance. Again, just as we have in the other one too, we have acceptance here. We be willing to take advantage if it occurs. but not actively pursuing it. So if the thing happens, that is fine. But it's not something that we don't think is a do or die affair. So if it doesn't happen, that is fine. If it happens, we just take advantage of that particular thing. So you note that if the CDs strengthen next month, imports will be cheaper, but you don't take action now. You don't take action now. So this is what we are talking about. You don't take action now because probably you are not involved into the import and then the export business. So it doesn't really affect you. Okay. Any questions before we move on, please? Colleagues, any question? Okay. So the section 2 talks about the hierarchy of control. Hierarchy of control. So with the hierarchy of control, we are saying that it is a structured approach to manage risk. A structured approach to manage risk. And this one, it ranks the risk control methods from the most effective one to the least effective. So just as it says in your book, organizations or industries use this system. Please, is anybody asking any question, please? Okay, somebody was talking anyway. Let's continue. So with this one, we are saying that is a system that we use to minimize and then eliminate our exposure of risk to the organization. So it's an approach that organization use to manage their risk. And it helps, how do I put it? It helps managers to answer some important questions. Some questions like, if this risk exists, what is the strongest, or let's say, what is the most effective way we can control this risk? So instead of you jumping into some simple solutions, okay, or yes, some simple solution, this hierarchy of control can help you as a manager to think systematically. So this is what the hierarchy of control is about. And we have 5 tiers. The hierarchy comes in tiers of 5 tiers, of which the first one is elimination. So the elimination is the most effective amongst all the 5. Here, you try to completely remove the hazard or the risk source, the source of a risk or the hazard. By now, I know we all know what hazard is because we've talked about it. You try to eliminate the source of the risk or the hazard. So if that risk source is gone, then it means that the risk disappears. If that hazard is not there, then that risk is not likely to happen. So let's say if you have a naked wires, okay, in your workshop or in any of your factories, and you know that this naked wires, if there is a contact with any human being, there will be a shock and probably the death of that employee. So if you are using the elimination, here, what you do is that you take that hazard away, either by fixing it or you try to take it from the premises so that that risk event will not happen at all. So yeah, we are saying that maybe an example we can give is manual handling injuries in the warehouse. So let's say people, because they use manual, the manual way of doing things, manual lifting, those forklifts and all that, and probably it is causing a lot of injuries to the employees in the warehouse. So the elimination strategy, what it does is that it replaces the manual lifting with some automated systems, maybe a conveyor or something. Yeah, so it takes away what is likely to cause the risk and eliminate it, or probably want to replace it or take it from there. Then there's the substitution. The second one is a substitution. The substitution works just like the elimination. It works just like the elimination. But with the elimination, what you do is whatever is causing the issue, you just take it away. You just take it away from there. But with the substitution, what we are saying is that you try to find a safer alternative. You replace a risky process with a safer alternative. So in your book, they gave an example like Dako Farm sees many employees suffer health problems due to the use of a pesticide with a DDT. So in order to solve this problem, then Dako Farms substitute an organic pesticide so that the health issues of the employees will go away. This is what we are talking about. Then we talk about the third one, which is the engineering controls. With engineering controls, this one talks about the fact that we physically redesign systems or environment to reduce risk exposure. We physically reduce systems or environment to reduce the risk exposure. So instead of you removing the risk as seen in the elimination and then the substitution, instead of you removing the risk, here what you do is that you isolate the people from whatever is going to cause the risk. You isolate the people from whatever is going to cause the risk. This is the engineering of control that we are talking about. So an example can be that maybe let's say there's a likelihood of forklift accident in the warehouse. Forklift accident in the warehouse. So what do? You install mirrors to blind the corners. And how maybe because of the position of a forklift, you try to bring physical barriers so that people don't even get contact with where those forklifts are. And an example that your book gave us, and Amin Sangari factory employees complaints of respiratory and allergy issues from airborne practices on the factory floor. And what the company did was to install a vent hood to circulate air and reduce air pollutant in the factory. So this one, they don't remove the risk, but then they try to isolate the individual. The control. This one, we are saying that this seeks to improve workplace safety by creating procedures in the workplace. So here, policies, procedures, training, supervision are used to manage the behavior of people. So this is about managing behavior of the people that we work with. So an example can be late supply delivery. So an administrative control that we can use is you set delivery performance KPIs for your suppliers. So when these procedures are there, late delivery of supplies, all the time this person is falling short. So this will guide you if you still want to do business with the person or not. Or let's say there is always there are workplace accidents, a risk you've identified. So the administrative control that we can use is safety training. You train your employees about maybe the machineries, the equipment you guys are using to prevent that workplace accident. And then maybe because of tiredness or fatigue, what you can do is that you do this shift rotation to reduce fatigue so that all these workplace accidents will be reduced. This is what we are talking about. Then the last one is the PPEs, the personal protective equipment. Is a hierarchy control that we use to reduce or eliminate risk. This is the least effective. So when you draw a pyramid, okay, just like let's say the Maslow's theory of needs, how that diagram is. So the PPEs will be the least. Let's say the basic needs, if you are using the Maslow's theory, the basic needs, then we move to the most effective, of which we said which was the elimination control. So the PPEs, we all know what PPEs are. These are should I say things? These are tools, these are tools that we use to protect the individual from the hazard or from the harm instead of removing the harm. So we have helmets, the safety boots, the goggles, the gloves, and all that. So these things protect us from the harm or the hazard. Okay. Please, anybody want to ask a question? Since I'm projecting, probably if I can't see. Okay, no, nobody's here. I heard a sound anyway. Okay, so we continue.
Hello, madam.
Yeah, hello.
Please, if you say the PP, is less effective, when you come to the health sector, the PP is very, very crucial because that one, sicknesses, you cannot take it away, but rather you can only protect the nurse that is giving the care or the doctor. So it, in that regard, is not less effective.
Okay. So he's trying to tell us that the PPEs are not less effective. So let's say you are working, so let's say when the COVID-19 came, right? And the controls that were used were the PPEs. But then an organization could also say that because it was because of that we were using the nose mask and all that. So an organization who wants to eliminate that risk will say that, yeah, because of how do you call it? How great this risk is, then workers don't come to the office at all. Yes, this is a very effective tool that has been used or control that has been used. COVID-19 is there. We are being forced to go to the workplace. We using sanitizers, nose mask, and all that. There is a likelihood that we can be exposed to that risk. There's a likelihood that we can be exposed to that risk, but then because we still need to be there, then let's use this to protect the employees. That's why we are saying that this is the least amongst all the 5 that we are talking about. But maybe it will depend on the type of industry that you are in or industry that you are working in. Please, do you get it? Please, who asked the question?
George.
George. Okay, George. It seems today George is talking. Noticed. Yes. So here we come. Then how do we apply those controls to mitigate risk? How do we apply those controls to mitigate risk? So here we are talking about types of controls used in risk mitigation. The first one is the preventative controls. Preventative controls. So this one, you stop the risk from happening. So you can just connect them to the 40s. It depends on how you are going to explain. So with the preventative controls, here we are saying that the purpose is to stop the risk from happening. So separation of duties in procurement. One person works on orders, another approves it, so that there is no corruption in there. If I'm the same person ordering for the product and I'm the same person giving approvals, then I can do whatever thing I want to do. And also we can say that approval hierarchy for large purchases. If you want to procure something of high value, then it needs to go through approval so that we don't use our own discretion to do some of these purchasing. When these happen, it reduces fraud and poor procurement decisions. Okay, so to prevent that, we put all these things, these controls in place. Then we have a directive controls. With the directive controls, we are saying it ensures a desired outcome happens. A desired outcome happens. So you talk about the Ghana Standards Authority. You say they will fall under the directive controls because they've put in place some regulations that organizations need to follow. Organization needs to follow some standards that needs to be met. So if those controls are put in place, then we are saying that we are doing what we call the directive control to mitigate any form of risk. Then these controls try to guide our performance within an organization. Then we talk about the third one is the detective controls. Yes, with the detective controls, what we do is we identify that something has already gone wrong. This is a reactive approach that we use to mitigate risk. You know that undesired risk has happened. That fraud is going on. So we know that this is happening already, but we want to correct it. We want to correct it. So what we do is we do internal control, internal audit, where the auditors will come and then they will come and find out what is going on within your organization. Then accident report. The accident has happened already, but we still need to report on them. Then maybe in the future, it will guide us. So that is that. Then this one, they do not prevent the risk or the incident from occurring. They only detect it. Then we have a last one, which is the control, the corrective controls. corrective controls. These controls, after we have detected, yes, after we have detected the risk or the errors or thing that has already gone wrong, then these corrective controls comes in to mitigate it, to reduce the impact after the risk has happened. So the risk has happened, but then maybe at first we didn't have anything like insurance, but we seen the first one happen, then first we go and then insure our goods, our property with an insurance company, or we do legal remedies. So these restore some financial positions after the damage has occurred. Okay. You still don't have any question. We move on. In fact, with this risk assessment metrics, this is what we did last week. The assessment, the probability times the impact. We've done that already, so please, we skip this, then we move on. Yes, it's here. We did last week. In risk management, with the risk that we've been able to identify, we register those risks. We register those risks, update those risks in the risk register, and in solving them, we need to involve our stakeholders. Because if you identify a risk today and you don't document it, you don't write it down, you don't register it anywhere, the next time you won't even remember that this risk even happened. For us, so for us to have records of all the risks that we've been able to identify, then we need to register those risks. So that is what we call the risk register. So a risk register is just like we having a database of a risk that we've been able to identify. Okay, it's a formal document that we use to identify risk. We keep records of the risks that we've been able to identify, the impact of those, the likelihood of those risks happening. So all the things that we've stated, you put these things in the risk register. You record the identified risk. You record the likelihood of a risk happening and the impact. Then you assign the responsibility of a risk to a risk owner, somebody who is going to make sure that if this risk is there, how are we going to control it? So it's the responsibility of the person to either reduce it, eliminate it at all, if they want to tolerate it, they go ahead. And also you track mitigation actions. Still, as used to track mitigation actions. Are you going to treat? Are you going to how do you call it? Transfer? Are we going to tolerate? What are we going to do? Everything is in there. Then you monitor the progress. You monitor the progress. So in your book, this is the content of a risk register. The risk register. So definitely it will have columns of the risk that you are going to enter, an identification number. So if it's theft, theft is 01, fire outbreak 0111. So they have identification numbers attached to any risk event. Then in the register, you are able to rank each risk depending on the likelihood and then the impact of those risks. So normally they use the traffic light. I think the diagram is in your book. When you get there, you would see. You would see. Then the description, the root cause of the risk and what triggers the risk, All these things are in the risk. Yeah. So this is how the risk register looks. I'm hoping you guys can see. Yeah. So the risk register, you have an ID. They did it RP01. We have a risk. So the risk are here. The likelihood of the risk happening. Last week we did the assessment, which is the likelihood times the impact. Will then you get to know the severity. Then you assign a risk owner to the risk. So if it's George, you write his name there. If it's Benjamin, you write his name there. Then the mitigation strategies also come in. So this is how the risk register looks like. So the ones in red, you could see that or know that it will be under the D category in the risk matrix that we talked about last week. High impact, high probability. So that one, critical attention needs to be given to that. Okay. Yeah, so we continue. Mhm. Mhm. How can we maintain the risk register? Maintenance of the risk register. So we are saying that it needs to be reviewed regularly, either monthly or quarterly. Monthly or quarterly, you need to review the risk, then you update them. Update the risk when there are any changes in the environment. Update them when there are any changes in the environment. And as you have updated them, you know that risk mitigation strategies need to be applied because the current status of a risk have changed. Okay. And we then move to the traffic light system. The traffic light system is just this one. The colors that we see here, the red, yellow, green, indicating how severe the risk is when it happens. So when the impact is very high, then the likelihood is very high. We take the red. We know red is cool. That it means that that thing is very serious. Then the yellow, it's in between. Then the green, we know that it's something that we can deal with. So the red is high risk, the amber, which is the yellow, is the medium risk, and then the green, which goes for the low risk. So this one help us to manage, identify critical risk very fast. So this is the traffic lights that they are talking about. And this help us to communicate risks and then make decisions based on the priorities that we give to those risks. And somebody will ask, why is this traffic light thing important? It is important because we know that the red means that immediate attention needs to be given. The amber means that we need to monitor it closely. Then the green means that we can accept it for now. Yeah, so when, I don't know if, please, has anyone had the opportunity to see a risk register before or maybe work with a risk register before? Hello, class.
Yes, madam.
Have you had the opportunity to work with a risk register before? Maybe you can share your experience with us. If no, just say no. Okay, somebody has given me a thumbs down. It means no. Okay, all right. Hey, these people. Instead of you to talk, you are giving me signs. That's
Oh,
fine.
madam, we have
Emoji.
not experienced, madam, we have not experienced that. Oh.
Okay, okay, that's fine. That's fine. So we look at some benefits of using a risk register. Some benefit of using a risk register. So here it captures all decisions and analysis that are made about a risk that we've been able to identify. A risk that we've been able to identify at a centralized place or a database. So that is one benefit. And it provides a template document allowing risk information to be recorded systematically. Yeah, so it's like an evidence. It provides documentation evidence that is useful for audits, maybe some compliance and some legal protection. So you can use the risk register because of this. And also accountability sake. Accountability sake, because each risk has a risk owner or a named owner. So it prevents the blame shifting. We know that you are responsible for managing this type of risk. So accountability also comes in here. Then visibility throughout the organization. There is transparency. Everybody gets to see what the risk events are, where they exist, who owns them, what actions are planned. There is no hidden risk. There is no hidden risk. Okay. And as usual, help us get a framework for monitoring risk, managing, and then review of our risk. Okay. They are there plenty. So then why do you think that in mitigating risk, we need to involve our stakeholders? Is it even important to involve our stakeholders when managing risk? Let me come to the classroom and see your names. Ajua Wilson, why do you think it's important to involve our stakeholders when managing risk? Hello.
Hello, madam. Please, I just
Think it's important to involve. Yeah, Samuelata.
Madam, please, for better risk identification. So with
For
this, the
better what?
stakeholders might better risk identification.
Okay.
The stakeholders might bring their experiences and perspectives, which will help uncover risks that the managers might overlook.
Okay. 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 Thank you, Samuel. Gladys Donu. Gladys. Gladys. In fact, you can decide not to mind me today, okay? I'll definitely get you. Isa, God's way.
They must, because they are affected by the operation of the business. So they must be involved into risk mitigation, please.
Come again. Isa, God's way. I didn't get what you said.
Yes, yes. Please, I was saying that yes, because they are affected by the operation of the business, so they need to be factored in.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. I think I saw a hand. Boache. The person with the name Boache.
Yes, madam.
Yeah.
Yes, madam. Madam, I think we should involve the stakeholders because their involvement increases commitment to the risks.
Their involvement, that's what?
It increases their commitment to the risks.
Increases their
Risk management.
commitment. Their commitment
To the risk.
to managing
In
the
risk
risk.
management.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. Christian. Yeah, Christian.
Hello, madam.
Yes, I've not
Yeah,
heard
so
from you today.
yes, so the stakeholders, the business affects them positively. So in terms of financial wise, they need to be aware of the risk, so that they will know how to, deal with suppliers and other things in the business.
Okay. Okay. I need one last person, then we can continue. Musa Mohammed.
Okay, madam. The stakeholders, they need to be involved because, let me take an organization for example. The stakeholders, they are in charge of like all the activities. Like sometimes they are not much involved in the work, but they are in charge of everything. And the risk, some of the risk comes for like insurance and compensations. That is why they need to be aware for those certain things. So when it comes for that part of insurance and compensations, they can also do that for them, like those who are like something have happened to them, like the risk.
Okay. 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 George.
Madam, please, I
Yeah,
think
George.
stakeholders should be involved because stakeholders are people who have key interests in an organization or its activities, and then they are also affected by the organizational activity. So any risk at all is going to affect them in the long run. So they must be involved so that in the mitigation, it has a positive impact on them as well.
Okay, George. Thank you. I think I'll take Abraham, Benjamin, and then the Deborah Sapon. Then we can continue.
Madam, so I think
Yes.
engaging the stakeholders, it helps build trust and credibility It also helps to
Okay.
avoid potential conflict. And engaging them, telling them what is going on, it helps to avoid potential conflict and also builds trust and credibility.
Okay. Okay. Benjamin.
Madam, please, we should involve our stakeholder because some of the stakeholders could be our financiers, some of them could be our suppliers or technical
Yeah.
or operational workers. So therefore, when we
Mm-hmm.
involve them, it will help us to uncover risk or
Okay.
any risk that will come in an organization. So it's better we involve them because they could be a supplier, they could be a financier, there
Mm,
could be an
yeah.
operational risk manager, or anyone who can take part during risk management or identifying risk in an organization. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Deborah Sapon, please.
Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon.
I'm in view of the stakeholder and then the shareholder. From what the last person said, I know shareholders have financial interest, but stakeholders
Yes.
may not. So with what the last person said, I think there's a bit of
Yeah. Wait. Shareholders are part of stakeholders. Yeah. Shareholders are part of stakeholders. A shareholder is an example of a stakeholder. So if you can take
okay.
your point again. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted that clarity. Stakeholder and shareholder. That's what I wanted. And I think it's clarified. Thanks.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. We continue. Yes, so okay. We know who our stakeholders are. We know them. They can be our shareholders, our suppliers, our customers, our employees, the regulators, the investors, our partners, and all that. So why do we need to even involve them, or why do they matter when it comes to risk management? Because risk does not affect only one department. It does not only affect the procurement department, but it affects all these stakeholders. So if it affects all these stakeholders, why don't we involve them when we are managing these risks? And all the other reasons that your colleagues talked about. So why their involvement? Somebody talked about the fact that for better identification of risk, because suppliers may see risk that we, the procurement people, we cannot even see. So if we involve them in mitigating or managing our risk, it really helps, because a supplier can warn you of an upcoming raw material shortage, because that is what they do. That's their field. They know what goes on there. So if we involve them, they can even tell us beforehand that there's going to be shortage of this raw material, so you guys should prepare. And somebody also talked about, I think, responsibility or commitment, something like that. So we have shared responsibility. We know that risk mitigation is not just a job for the procurement people, neither is it just for management, but it requires cooperation of all the shareholders or all the partners involved in risk management. Because for us to be able to reduce late deliveries, what can we do? Supplier needs to improve their planning, buyer needs to improve, we need to improve our forecasting. So it's not just about the supply, neither is it just about the buyers, but both of us, we have work to do when it comes to this risk mitigation. Then we need to involve them because of It helps with better communication in times of crisis. Better communication in times of crisis. And because the stakeholders are involved, if anything happens, they are in the known already, so that they don't come and blame us for even for things that we have not done. So if this communication thing is done, it strengthens our relationship and problems are solved very fast. Yes, so this is it. Why we need to involve our stakeholders in risk management. Talking about risk management, we need resources to manage them. There is a need for us to talk about the resources that we talk about risk allocation. We are trying to assign the various resources to manage and mitigate risk effectively. So the resources can be money, it can be people, it can be time, it can be tools, equipment, and all that. So how we are able to assign these resources to manage and then mitigate risk. And we should know that risk management is not free. Definitely is not free. Risk management is not free. We need to allocate resources. It's not just about thoughts. We are managing risk. This organization, we need to take our risk management seriously. It's not just about you talking about it. You need to act. You need to allocate resources. You need to allocate resources. So I want to talk about why risk allocation is important when it comes to risk management. One, without adequate resources, we are not able to plan our risk very well. The risk planning remains theoretical. We only talk about them. We don't implement them if we don't have the resources to manage these risks. The controls that we talked about becomes weak. If these resources are not there, how do we prevent those? How do we prevent the risk? How do we how can we even detect some of these risks if these resources are not there? We know we need employees to do this auditing thing. We need money to get some software, some technology to help us detect and even identify these risks. And if these resources are not available, what can we do? Then if we don't have resources or allocation isn't done properly, monitoring becomes irregular. The tools are not there for us to use for the reviews. The people are not there to do the review for us. When it comes to monetary issues, management isn't willing to commit. So how do we achieve the management of these risks that we normally talk about? So for us to be able to manage our risk effectively, then we need financial commitment, which is a resource. We need support from our management, which is a resource, and it should be a priority for the organization. Okay. Then we move on to resource categories needed for risk management. The first one, I'm surprised that the first one wasn't financial resources. Okay. In fact, it is the last resource. So we will take it one after the other here. The first one here is the informational resources. The informational resources. Here, risk management, we are saying, depends heavily on information about the so that's why I don't know whether it was, yes, you can't do risk management when you don't have data. What you are doing is just guesswork. It won't work. You'll not be able to identify your risk, and even how to mitigate them will become a problem. So if we have access to information about our suppliers, how financial, how stable they are when it comes to their finances, we get to know about some trends in the market, the exchange rate and all that. We get to know about some regulatory changes as well. Are there any political developments? If we have information, we get to know about all these things, and this helps us to manage some of our risks. So information is very important. Then human resources. Human resource, you know that there is no way you can do away with us humans. The AIs are there, they are doing what they can do, but then even with the AIs and all those things, it's human beings that are manipulating or working on them. So skilled personnel are needed to identify the risk. We talked about the fact that we have risk owners. They are human beings who are going to do that, to monitor the risks, to conduct these auditing that we talk about, to review the risk register that we spoke of, to review the risk register that we spoke of, and even implement these strategies. So human resources are also important. And these human resources needs to be trained so that they will know what they are about. Then we talk about the infrastructure development. Infrastructure development. Yeah, so with this one, the infrastructure development can be technology, technological resources, or support. So right now, just as I said, we have softwares that we use for risk monitoring. We use the ERP systems to help with the risk monitoring identification. We have a software we call risk management software. So all these technologies, infrastructures are there to help us mitigate some of these risks. And some cyber security systems that have been put in place. So these things help to detect early warning signs. So these infrastructures are there to help us mitigate some of these risks. Then time as well. Time is a resource. Often we tend to ignore time. We don't even consider it as part of the resources that we have as an organization or as a supply chain people. But it is very important. Risk management, we know that we need to it requires regular review meetings. We need to get time for all these meetings. People share their ideas. You're trying to come up with solutions about the risk that you've been able to identify and all that. Risk management deals with risk reporting. In your reporting, you need time to do all these things. So if you don't have time to review your risk, then there is the chance that your risk will increase in the future because you don't have the time, the luxury of time to be updating or reviewing your risk, and it doesn't help. Yes, and then the one I was looking for, the financial resources. You know, with finances is very key. In fact, everywhere you go, this resource is very key. So without the financial resources, it's really going to, so we need, because we need the money for this. If we are going to transfer, the insurance covers, we need to pay. We need money for it. If we are going to do audits, we need money to pay the people that who are going to do the audits. If we need to do training programs requires money. If we need to buy this PPEs and all that, we are going to use money. So money is very important. Financial resource is very important when we talk about resources that we use for risk management. Okay, then I think we would move on to the risk awareness. What did I see? Yeah. How do we promote and encourage risk awareness in the organization? How do we do that? What is risk awareness? So risk awareness is about employees understanding risk in whatever tasks that they are doing. So here is, you're saying, is a mindset which recognizes the existence of threats and then vulnerabilities and take into account when they are making or when they are taking any decision. So employees need to understand the risk, the inherent risk in their tasks or in their roles that they are performing. And then employees should be able to identify and report any potential problem or risks that they are able to identify. They should be able to report. And so how can we promote this risk awareness? We can do that through training, education and training. We can do that through communicating our vision to the organization. We can do this by rewarding efforts, people that are able to identify risk and mitigate them very well. You can award the efforts of these people and also encourage reporting of these risks as well. So these are ways we can. And we move on to monitoring the risk environment. Risk culture, if I'm sure we did it either in the first week. Yeah, the first week we talked about what risk culture is. If I ask right now, it's going to be a problem. So let me just move on. So with we monitoring risk, we should have a risk culture. And that risk culture is directed towards managing the adverse consequences. So here we are saying that how we behave towards risk, in an organization. How have you designed your system? How do you go about it when there is any risk event? So risk management culture, it basically means how people within the organization think about risk. What is their perception about risk? How do they talk about risk? How do they respond to risk? In fact, how do they prioritize risk? This is what we are talking about. That it is not just policies, but then it becomes the behavior of the organization, how people behave towards risk in the organization is what we call the risk culture and how these things are being managed. I'm looking for something. Looking for. Okay, it's not. Okay. Yeah, so the organizational culture, in your book, we have the cultural web, things that people do, like in this class, talking about risk management, things that they do to help respond to any risks that are being identified or how they behave towards these risks. So the paradigm, we are saying that the core values about the risk. The last time we talked about risk appetite, the types of risk appetite. So this place will show you if the risk appetite, which type is the can we see this organization? It talks about innovation and all that. Then the story aspect talks about some tales of past success or failures of the organization. There were crises and how it affected the organization and how we behave towards it and all that. So in fact, all these things are there. Please, you can read through them. Let me touch on something very quickly then before the 1:30. Yeah, I think, yeah, this place. Let me just look at. Yes, business continuity planning when it comes to risk management. It is very critical, something very important that we need to look at. Important we need to look at. Business continuity planning. What is it? It is this, we are saying that these are structured plans, or should I say procedures, okay, that are designed to ensure that an organization can continue with their operations during and after a disruption. So if there is any disruption, like the COVID-19 that came in, then procedures are put in place in a way that the organization can continue the operations during or even after that disruption. That's what we call business continuity planning. So a death of a CEO need not to, yes, it can disrupt the business, but then it's the business should still run because you guys have put some plans in place when it comes to continuity of a business. Continuity of a business. So when plan A fails, you have plan B. When plan B fails, there is plan C. So we are saying that if a disaster strikes tomorrow, how do we keep the business running? So disruptions, they occur. When they occur, what happens? There can be fire, flood, political unrest, pandemic, power failure, and all that. If ECG takes their power in your factory, what is the plan B? We have plans. So this is what we are talking about. This is what we are talking about. So probably you can ask yourself, if you work in a warehouse and the warehouse burned down tonight, can your company operate tomorrow? Have you put in any Any plans there? Do you have any plans when something happens today in your organization or in the supply chain? That's a question we need to ask. So why is this business continuity planning important in supply chains? One, we are saying that it ensures resilience and then continuing viability of the business. Because when something happens, because we have contingency plans, we have systems in place. We have systems in place. When anything happens, we just fall on those things. The business still stands. The business still stands. And if we don't have this business continuity planning, we stop production. We stop production. We can't produce as a business because there is fire outbreak. We don't have any other option. Our customers get disappointed. And when they get disappointed, we lose our image. We lose our image, our reputation as an organization, which isn't good. And our revenue also drops. Our revenue also drops. One critical thing I want us to talk about is the process. The process. The process. Okay. So the process of business continuity. The first one is, in fact, I don't see this here in your book, but we can still brush through. Yeah, we can still brush through. One, you need to identify the critical operations. You need to identify the critical operations. So what function must continue? Is it procurement? Is it IT? Is it customer service? If something happens right now, which function within the organization needs to continue? So if you get to identify these critical operations, then you know what to do, because you need to prioritize essential activities when there is a disruption. Then you conduct risk assessment in these functions. When the risk happens, how is it going to affect our organization? You look at the ratings. Is it high? Is it low? So, example, if there is a power outage, impact is that there is a halt in production. And how do you mitigate them? We have backup generators. They're like the example I gave. Then you develop recovery strategies. After assessing the risk, you ask yourself, what resources do we need? What resources are we going to need? How fast can we recover? You ask yourself all these questions. So some of the strategies you can use is you need to have backup suppliers, insurance coverages and all that. Then you develop and document a plan. This thing we are talking about, it is a plan. You document the plan. It has the responsibilities, those who are going to take charge, who does what, who does this. Then you also have a communication plan. How do we communicate any type of risk? So you have to take charge of all these things. So after the development of a plan, you need to test and review if it really works. A plan is never tested. A plan that we don't test might fail when there are any form of crisis. So you need to test the plan to see if they really work. So these are the processes involved when you talk about business continuity planning. Then we can talk about business continuity planning without talking about succession planning. I know most of us know what succession planning is about. Succession planning here ensures that if a key personality or a key employee suddenly leaves the organization, if a key employee retires or resigns or dies, your supply chain suffers, then there is something wrong with the organization. That's why we need to train the people that we work with. So in case we are not there, they can just take over. Then the supply chain will still work. It's still active. Our businesses are still active. In some firms, if the CEO dies, we could see that that is the end of the organization. This need not to happen. This needs not to happen at all. So these are some of the risks that happens when some risks caused by lack of succession planning, lack of leader development, and leader transition management. Because we don't even think about who is going to succeed who, we don't even train them, we don't even develop them. So when this happens, and even when a manager is leaving, there is nothing like a formal transition program or training that is done. Somebody leaves, that is all. The person doesn't even leave any how do you call it, handover notes, nothing like that. We just leave. The person who is coming, how is the person going to continue? So some of these things don't really help. So let's say you are a procurement manager, you're able to identify all these risks in your organization. As a risk manager, you know how to manage, mitigate all these risks, and you are leaving the organization and you don't leave any of these things behind. The person coming, how is he or she going to continue unless the person start from the scratch, which of course some of these things don't really help. And loss of continuity of leadership. Yes, consistency of a brand. Because the person has left, it's in quotes seems like the person took all the knowledge away. The person took all the knowledge away. So there's nobody who has the same knowledge as the person. So the business is going to suffer in terms, even the leadership aspect. So these are some issues that it brings. Lack of strategic innovation. The person with all the innovative ideas is gone, has left. So we are left with nothing. It needs not to be so. It needs not to be so. We need to train our people when it comes to some of these things. So some key elements when it comes to succession planning, some approaches that we need to follow, activities that we need to, things that we need to do. So those things are also there. We identify some key positions that you think that this positions we can't lose this position. So all the time we are training. If one person leaves, another person come and take over. Review job descriptions and person specification for a specific job. You have to use performance appraisal systems to identify the potentials of your employees. If they need to be promoted, you promote them. If they need to be transferred, you transfer them to a post that you think they can work best there. Then in HR, we have something called talent management or talent development. You develop and implement this talent management plans so you could identify potential successes. Okay, so this is what, and we should have documents, the the handover thing that I was talking about as a reference point. So people that comes in will can also refer to the documents that you have, the documents that you have. And the last one we are saying that when somebody is leaving, we can conduct an exit interview for these people that are leaving the organization, of which I'm not sure in Ghana, this is something that we do. I'm not sure. It's something that we do or we even want to do. Okay. Then finally, we talk about knowledge management. How do we manage the knowledge we have as an organization? Talking about succession plan. Somebody comes to the organization and the person leaves, and it seems the person has taken all the knowledge in the organization away. So in order for us to retain this knowledge, we need to manage them. We need to manage them. So through the trainings, whether individual, group, or organizational learning, you need to acquire some of these knowledge. And when you acquire the knowledge, you need to transfer the knowledge and apply. Some people, when they are your bosses or even your colleagues, they know something and then they don't even want to teach you how to go about something, which does not help us as an organization. So knowledge management ensures that important organizational knowledge is captured, stored, and shared. So that's why now most organizations, they use the cloud to store most of their documents. So if today George isn't there, then Benjamin can easily take over. Benjamin can easily take over. Okay. So I think I would end here. These are things, yeah, the same thing that I've explained. Any question for me? If you have any question, please ask. Then we can call it a day. Guys, please, do you have any questions for me? Okay. So
No, madam.
okay. So I will leave you so you can have the few minutes to rest before you move on to the next class. So guys, enjoy the rest of the day, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, madam.
Bye.
Yeah.